And I'm live. I'm Don. It's late. I'm up. Hi. How are you, my friends? Welcome tonight. We're going to be watching a horror masterpiece, one of the Mount Rushmore of horror movies, in my opinion. Even if you don't like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you probably like something that was inspired by Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it's, pardon the term, but it's seminal. You know what I mean? It's the baby daddy of a bunch of movies we love. So this is an important one. I love this one. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff with it. But if you would like to watch along or watch this on streaming, it is everywhere, everywhere. I'm going to watch the 50th anniversary edition on Prime, but you can also watch it on Netflix. And it is currently also streaming on Pluto with ads, but they can kiss my ass because they ruined my Friday the 13th stream. And yeah, all the other ones are bouncing around too. Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, all sorts of options for watching this one. But the main one, the 1974 Tobe Hooper classic, is the one we're going to start off with. I'm going to watch this on Prime Video, get this queued up. I'm going to say hello to the folks in the chat as they're pouring in, and then we're going to get started on this bad boy. It's a short one. It's only an hour and 23. Oh, sorry, this one's an hour and 26 minutes. A new presentation featuring additional restoration work of this classic horror film. Five friends traveling through the rural Texas stumble across ... Oh snap! Extra scary. Um, so yeah, we'll see who's popping around here. I see my friend Juno was already here. Juno 2000, welcome, my friend. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a masterpiece horror classic, and I prefer it over the remake. Yeah, I enjoy the 2003 Jessica Biel remake, but it's not as good as this. This is different. We'll talk about why it's different, why it's special, etc. But yeah, I agree with you, Juno. The Chainsaw franchise is the most cluster as they do what they want to reboot over and over again, which is ridiculous. Y- Yes, exactly. This suffers from the same issues that a lot of horror franchises, especially the big ones, do. That's one thing you have to hand it to Friday the 13th. They do a good job of like some sort of continuity between each movie. You know, Halloween goes off in one direction, this goes off in another direction. You know, Saw is the best of staying with the continuity. That one's got like WWE planning, long term booking, I say. The original trilogy 1, 2, 3 are the best, and How I Saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's see. 22 Juno Chainsaw Massacre was really bad and filled with the dumbest and annoying characters to ever follow that are unredeemable, and they make Leatherface the only person likable not being scary. Um, I don't totally agree with that, but I have heard that opinion from a lot of folks. I mildly enjoy the new one because I'm just happy there was a new Leatherface and my mind was blown that it was on Netflix. And yeah, most of the characters were super unlikable. That's one of the problems with horror movies. They don't seem to always grasp we should want these people to not die. You know, this one I think was basically just Leatherface porn. That 2022 one, like when he kills the whole bus full of people, you know, they're using Leatherface the way a lot of people like to use Jason or Freddy. Hey, Stacy's here. Welcome, Acres of Movies. Hello and thanks. Some fun facts. Toby enjoyed watching multiple screens at a time, usually three movies at once. I've adopted this style as preferable. Toby was fun to watch movies with. Yes, you had mentioned before you know Toby Hooper, or you had had some dealings with him. I'm very jealous. Any information or anecdotes you'd like to share in the chat while this goes on, I would much appreciate. Um, Oh, let's see. Stacy also says, Life Force and Spontaneous Combustion are incredible movies. Yeah, I mentioned before, I still need to see Life Force. I don't know how that one's escaped me all this time. He was offered Matthew Broderick comedy Out on a Limb. What was Out on a Limb? The name sounds familiar, but I'm drawing a blank. In a massive Arizona yurt and would have frequent parties well past dawn. The yurt he once owned is now in the Hilton Ranch properties of the Kingman area. See, that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. That's good inside info right there. I got my people everywhere. The night owl tentacles spread wide. Thank you, Stacy. Hey, my friend Anthony Chabot is here. Big Tony, what's up? How are you, buddy? By the way, he's up to 2017. That's awesome. You were on 2016 for a long time. I'm going to the medieval times and I haven't been feeling well as of late. Well, I hope you feel better and I hope medieval times is awesome. Yes, shout out to my family as well. Everybody in my house is, well, the kids are. Me and the missus are fine, but the junior night owls, our 1 year old baby has a cough. It's a bummer. Yesterday was her birthday, so she just turned one and she's got a cough now the day after. It's a sad thing. But I heard one of my neighbors hacking up a cough, and both kids have just been done being. It's the weather change season. It's going to happen. So hopefully you'll feel better soon, my friend. Welcome, Big Tony. I Love Nothing But Trouble, originally titled Valkenvania or Git. That's the Chevy Chase one, the crazy Dan Aykroyd and Demi Moore. I made pancakes and Sprite for dinner and got to Boo Bucket. I don't know what Boo Bucket is, but pancakes and Sprite is delicious. Cool, cool. Hey, Acres of Movies, cinephile. Welcome, Sean. Nice to see you, my friend. Anthony says he just watched Eight Legged Freaks. Yeah, I was going to show that to my wife. She hates spiders, so it would be a good Halloween movie for her. I'm excited for the memoirs. That is cool. Yes, Anthony's still cranking away on them. Spent a lot of time on 2016. It was a big year for my man. So. Um, Anthony says, "Happy birthday to your daughter." Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, there's a balloon up there on the ceiling, a princess balloon. She just turned 1, so we didn't want to do it too huge because she's 1. She don't know what's going on. But lots of adorable photo ops, and the kids had fun. Anyways, enough of wholesome loveliness. Let's move on to terrible awfulness with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Um, One of the things with this movie, I'm gonna go ahead and press. There's the Prime button, so I'll press that. There's a little Prime logo. I gotta ask me who I am. There I am. All right. Now we're gonna take our time here, and there's a little commercial for the boys up front. Otherwise, we're good. Um, so yeah, this one is one of the weird movies where the like compound words mean something in the title. So like this is the Texas Chain Saw Massacre as opposed to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The whether or not the words chain and saw are broken up is important on which one you're watching. This is the 1974 Tobe Hooper classic. Tobe Hooper, I also know him. I'm a big fan of Poltergeist, but there's some debate, like the way this movie looks and the way Toby's other movies look, of whether or not Spielberg had a big hand in futzing with Poltergeist. So here's the famous crawl at the beginning. The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths, in particular Sally Hardesty and her invalid brother Franklin. It is all the more tragic that they were young, but had they lived their very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad macabre as they did when set that day. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so this was voiced over by John Larroquette, who I know mainly from Night Court when I was a kid, but he's had like a bunch of TV runs and stuff. I think he was in a few movies too. He was a thing for a while. That John Larroquette, God love him. So this is one of the first things he ever did in the movie business. He did the voiceover, and he was paid one joint. That's an interesting trivia fact I don't get to say very often in these movies. August 18th, 1973. Uh, One of the reasons this movie's so important and like a huge deal in the horror history of movies or whatever, it starts off with the concept that did you freeze black on me? What's going on here? It's just a total black screen. Um, it's one of the movies that starts off with the concept that, hey, this is all real, man. This is based on a true story. And it's like, is it? I didn't hear about a bunch of people getting cannibalized in Texas. What? But what they're saying is much like Psycho, they stole from the old Ed Gein Wisconsin serial killer thing. There's currently a mini series about him on Netflix, but there's a ton of movies and everything about him. He's inspired so many of these damn horror movies, and Texas Chainsaw is based on Ed Gein as well, just like Psycho. Just yeah, all everything. Silence of the Lambs was a bunch of Ed Gein. Let's see here. Am I good at filming with drones? Mediocre. I have a very nice drone. I have a DJI something or other Pro. It's super nice. It gets amazing footage, like movie quality footage. Some stuff I've taken is just amazing, but I haven't had a chance to play with it that much. I live in a real congested city area, and like I'm not sure I'm even allowed to fly. I live close to an airport. Tampa Airport is very within the region and stuff. So drone laws are complicated, and I have no idea what I am or allowed to do, but I haven't had a chance to play with it. But I love me some drones. Every time I watch a movie and I see a cool drone shot, I'm like, oh boy. So here's the start of the movie in the graveyard with all this smoke and the big pull out. Somebody took these bodies and desecrated. Like I said, this is all Ed Gein stuff. Um, at least a dozen empty crypts, and it's feared more will turn up as the probe continues. Deputies report that in some instances, and all this feels like very next level of Night of the Living Dead. It's the same type of creepy graveyard, except here we are in the bright day with this hot yellow sun. Everything's orange, and they got the fog machine going. They're really turning up the horror. Pretty awesome practical effects. Like these decayed corpses look rather amazing for 1974 on a mega low budget. Um, Imagine Nubbins on the red carpet back then if they had it going for TMC, right? Any of that, any of them. Part two. Imagine just Gunnar Hansen just being dwarfing over people. Have you seen comedy Madhouse? John Larroquette, and Kirstie Alley. That's one of the ones I was thinking of with him. I knew he had at least one big major motion picture. Um, so here's the cast, the title card: Marilyn Burns, Alan Danziger, Paul Parsons, William Vale. A lot of these folks, you'll see them turn up at horror conventions. You see, you know, before I believe Gunnar passed away, but he was a common one that people would get at horror conventions. Let's see. So this is all stupid, like very 1970s cheap. Everything's got this red filter on it, and it's the camera's shaky, nothing's locked down. Part of the charm of this movie and the reason it works, back then, and the reason it works even better now is it looks so grainy and crappy. It feels almost like a documentary. There's this awesome, speaking of documentaries, there's an awesome one called American Movie, I believe, with Mark Borchardt, and he's a Borchardt, and he's a horror director, and he talks about how this is his favorite movie in that documentary, and he says this feels like something you would see in like eighth grade science class. It's gritty, 16 millimeter. There's all this grain. Some of the shots of right there, they open up on the dead armadillo laying in the road. It doesn't look like a movie. This doesn't look like how Poltergeist looks, as I mentioned earlier. The lack of polish helps with the horror in this. Mm. Let's see here. This is the artistic work of Nubbins. He spends most of those hot summer nights putting in some real work, right? Get Courtney Love to play ball and allow horror filmmakers, and Cobain wishes to make the heart-shaped box horror anthology. I was unaware of that one. That would be an interesting heart-shaped box horror anthology. I would like it. So here we open up. Here's the van with the, part of the fact that this dude is in a wheelchair makes him more vulnerable. So already we're onto some stuff with this. They're in Texas, which is a state that prides itself on people taking care of their own business. Not relying on the government or the cops or whoever. So this movie feels like they're out in the middle of nowhere, almost in a damn foreign country. This dude's in a wheelchair. So when stuff goes down, everybody's just ill equipped for what happens. When they pick up this hitchhiker coming up. So here's old buddy peeing in a can. It just starts off with gross stuff to make you feel away. Also, this is one of the few movies where people sweat. Like most times you want movies to look great. So if your actor's sweating up his armpits or whatever, you go change his shirt and you get him back to looking good. But here, the whole thing's slimy. It feels hot and uncomfortable. Sorry, comfortable. My wife is very, she doesn't like the way I pronounce comfortable. Very comfortable. Shout out to Mrs. Night Owl. Um, yeah, so there the truck goes by and knocks the dude in the wheelchair trying to pee off the side of the road. It's like this dude's having a terrible, terrible day. Um, the fact that these people are, I don't know, they're not quite hippies because it's the 70s, but there's some young out freewheeling, doing their own thing, young folks. So they're asking for trouble with these country people. They're out on their own in the middle of nowhere, which is a great premise for all horror. Uh, Halloween, part of the reason it works is it's the horror comes to your house. You're minding your own business and you hear noises in the house, and Michael Myers is in there. These people went out looking for adventure and they found it. So now they're driving by the graveyard. Folks are giving them a once over for being dirty hippies, even though they're not hippies. I keep watching The Net over and over. Perhaps Erwin Winkler's finals work. I saw The Net in the theater, our cinema. Yeah, I enjoyed The Net. It's a good thriller. Some of the internet logic and stuff doesn't quite stand up now that we know more about how things work and stuff. But in general, it's a fun thriller. So here, my man's stuck in the van in his wheelchair because he can't get out. It's funny. This movie almost starts off like he's gonna be the main guy. Like they sort of pull the psycho switch a little bit. We think the dude in the wheelchair might be the main fellow we're rooting for here, and then later on, the woman sort of takes the lead. Let's see here. The horror movie game is not a family friendly lifestyle. I know some horror filmmakers. Yeah, in general, it's I mean, as I often tell my kids when they see me watching horror, they come in and I have horror on. It's you have to remind everything's fake. The same way I made that movie with them where they're doing karate on each other or whatever is the same way somebody made this. They put a camera down, all that those skeletons are fake. It's like Halloween. So I always have to remind the kids that somebody made this. Somebody made this. But yeah, trying to actually make one and do all the stuff you have to do with kids around isn't always family friendly. So here's one of the first scenes where they mentioned how things stink in this movie. And that's another thing about this. Not only are they sweaty and uncomfortable looking, they look like this movie feels like it stinks. It's one of the few movies I feel like "Whew, I can kind of smell what's going on with this one here, you know? Raining like crazy where I'm at in Southeast PA. I'm jealous. You would think down in Florida I would have rain nonstop. We haven't had I think we've had it rain once in like 2 weeks. And this is hurricane season. What the hell? I don't know how that Baby Ruth candy bar in Franklin's shirt pocket didn't just completely melt. It wasn't real candy bar. Yeah, I mean, I think that was probably a conceit for making the movie. They decided to commit to horror filmmaking or family, one or the other. Art requires sacrifice. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, some people who are just naturally weird. Um, like I think Rob Zombie, people pick on him for having Sherry Moon in all his movies, and it's like, well, yeah, he wants to hang out with his wife. Otherwise, he'd be gone like 18 hours a day and he'd never see her. So as long as people are willing to let them work together, it's like, yeah, honey, come to work. Sorry, I got caught watching such a. This is the supposedly the restored 50th anniversary version, um, and it looks good. It's still got the grain to it that I talked about earlier. I've been watching The Walking Dead a lot lately, and you can see the digital grain in that, like the overlay filter they put on it to make it look like it's grainy like this. But this has the natural 16 millimeter, like I mentioned, science movie from junior high. So there's the big, huge, wide shot with the van that drives across from one side of the screen to the other to help you get some sense of how small they are in this big land. And they pick up the crazy hitchhiker. And as soon as they pick him up, they should have known, like, all right, we need to get rid of this guy. He's been in the van for 2 seconds, and already I'm like, you need to get rid of him. What do you like better, Dr. Pepper or Dr. Pepper? I like both. Toby loved Dr. Pepper. Get some ASAP. Um, yeah, I don't know much about Tobe Hooper the man. Like I know, most of his movies, and like I say, there's a this in particular. I feel like he's one of the OG granddaddies of horror that doesn't really get his due. Everybody knows Wes Craven, and Sam Raimi has worked his way into that sort of. Everybody knows them as a horror guy. Carpenter, obviously, but Tobe Hooper always gets left off the list of everybody's like big, famous, important horror directors. Give me Dr. Pepper all day. I really like the cherry flavored one. Yeah, I like me some cherry Dr. Pepper too. Around the 1920 action movie, underrated Run. Which one is that? I think I've seen it, but I can't recall who's the star of it. But for the budget of this movie, it looks great. Like even this stuff in the van. And this is hard to shoot. It's a tight little area, but they do a good job of making it look realistic. They do the shot one way from behind old buddy, and then they shoot from behind the wheelchair, and then we shoot back around. The budget on this one was it's approximately 140,000, but some people say it's 80,000. So basically somewhere between 80 and 140 to depending on adjusted for inflation and blah blah blah. But it made roughly 31 million. So I mean, even if you're not good at math, you can figure out, less than 200,000, maybe 100,000, and you make 31 million. You know, so this is one of the highest grossing like budget versus box office movies of all time. It's right there with Halloween and Blair Witch and a bunch of the other paranormal activities in there. So here's where he's freaking out and rubbing the knife and acting all creepy, and everybody's their reactions are classic. Like the people they got to be in this were all local Texas actors. They didn't really have the money for anybody big, and besides, nobody big really wanted to be in this. You get your agent gives you the script, and it says, Texas Chain Saw Massacre. It's like, I don't think I want to be in this movie. I want to see the new Sam Raimi Send Help. Yeah, I would like to see Send Help as well. Patrick Dempsey's in Ron. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I was trying to remember. I was like, is that Christian Slater or who the hell's in there? I knew one of those 1991 action or movie stars of the time was in it. Anthony Michael Hall had one too. What's it called? Like Out of Bounds, Nowhere to Run, some shit, some spork. Budget was 8 hot dogs. Nice. 8 hot dogs and one burnt sausage. So now here he busts out the straight razor, and they do a good job of like technically this doesn't really have to do with the whole movie other than getting them locked into the family, but it sets it up like there's a separate scene of terror, and then we're gonna get to the house and there's gonna be terror, and then she's gonna try to escape and there's gonna be terror. We often talk about the old Howard Hawks thing. What makes a great movie? Three great scenes, no bad ones. There's a handful of bad ones, but this also has so many great, memorable scenes. Even just her butt walking up to the house. It's famous. It's been duplicated and ripped off so many times. I'll be watching horror movies and it's like, oh, there's the Texas Chainsaw butt walking somewhere, the tribute shot. So yeah, here's where he says, "You take me off the road and take me over to the house." They could have very easily just done like some Scooby Doo thing where they ran out of gas and had to go knock on a door or something. But it's like, let's start off with this guy. Let's work the first act with this dude just being nuts and setting the tone for these folks just aren't right. Kill someone with a garden hose in a slasher. See, there's some debate over whether this is a slasher. To me, this is like the ultimate slasher. This is the first one with a big giant guy who was, terrorizing a whole group of people, and a final girl lives. He's using power tools. He's cutting at the skin. The cutting is very important because that's a different type of pain. Slicing and injuring people's skin and making them bleed. It's a visceral pain. Shooting's just as deadly, but it's not the same terror that this has. Um, so in my opinion, basically to get back to your garden hose question is I think a slasher can kind of damn near do anything. Like mostly they've got a slash, but if they bust out the harpoon gun or if they hang someone, whatever means necessary, mix it up a little bit. Although that's the problem with Leatherface, in my opinion, is he's limited to the chainsaw. So, like, as where Michael Myers can kind of creep up on you and he's got the knife, you might not even hear him do something to somebody in the other room. The chainsaw, you hear like next door. Like, no matter where you're at, like, you ain't getting away from the chainsaw noise. You can't really creep on people. And this movie bends the logic a lot of like somebody will open a door and there he is with the chainsaw running. And you don't hear it until he opens the door. Like, give me a break. Budget was 4 joints, 9 hot dogs, sausage, gravy, and lemonade in the Colombian product. Oh, Colombia, yeah, I bet they probably did need to be awake. It's a slasher where the killers are basically provoked. Yeah, I suppose. So there they get old buddy out of the van, and he's running along and kicking after he sliced my man. This is one when I was a kid, like most of my like dealings with these horror movies, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, etc. I saw them on home video or cable. And this one was one, and I've discovered it with people. When you're young, things that are like more than 10 years old seem old. Like now, this just seems like of a time. I enjoy the 1970s look of it. I like the cars. I like the houses. I like, the camera technology they have. So the way it looks and everything. The fact that this is a 70s movie is part of the charm of it to me. But when I was a kid in the 80s, it's like, well, I don't want to watch that old movie. Like it looks kind of old. The people have clothes like nobody wears nowadays and hairstyles like people don't have nowadays. It's old. I don't like it. So I never watched it as a kid. And then it would occasionally be on cable and I'd see it. And like I say, it just looked sort of cheap and old. And then the movie Summer School came out with Mark Harmon. He's like a teacher who has to teach summer school, obviously by the title. And two of his students are horror aficionados, Chainsaw and Dave, and they love Texas Chainsaw Massacre with a passion. And in that movie, there's a part where they watch Texas Chainsaw as a class movie. Um, and that it kind of made me want to see it. Like I was like, all right, I'm going to sit through this movie that doesn't look like something I usually watch. And it was gross and wild and strange, and it felt like what this movie is supposed to be. I would always see the cover of it at the video stores. You'd walk by and just the words alone give you a feeling. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I remember when part two came out, that was like a big video release. And I watched it, and I kind of didn't get it was supposed to be comedic the first time I watched it because I was a kid. I just only saw the horror. First time I saw Evil Dead 2 as a kid, I didn't get it was a comedy. I just saw the horror. Um, so the second one didn't quite resonate with me until I was older and it was on cable a lot. And then the other subsequent, sequels in that timeline didn't really mean much to me. I was just, late night cable stuff like, the Mangler's on and Texas Chainsaw Next Generation's on, and that grouping, late night cable Cinemax fodder. And then that 2003, I think it is, remake with Jessica Biel. Um, that one I thought was exceptionally good. It was something different. I wondered why they weren't using the Texas Chainsaw. It made me excited for more reboots because the money and time they threw at it is what a character like Leatherface probably deserves. Same when they made that Platinum Dunes Jason one or whatever. And then even when they made those new Michael Myers, the what's his name, Gordon Green or whatever his name is, those ones, the new ones, the 2018s. I'm happy when I see these old like video store monsters get their big screen modern due. So that's why I didn't really hate on the 2022 Netflix one. Or it was pretty. I mean, it's not a great movie, but it's just intriguing that Leatherface was now on Netflix. He was that big. Same when Hellraiser was on Hulu or whatever. It's like you guys are that big. I thought that was just a thing me and my friends liked. Speaking of the popularity of the movie, we got my Texas Chainsaw shirt on. This one is a mistake though, because this is the original Texas Chainsaw, but then the chain and the saw are one word, so it's hard to keep track with the compound words around here. So yeah, there's the undershot of her butt at the gas station, and this is another thing that horror movies. This is one of the first horror movies that figured out. It's like, well, fill in some of the gap time with just pretty women. Just throw a butt on the screen, or have some boob shake. That'll work. So now they're sitting at this gas station in, they're kind of killing time. And this, you can tell as soon as I saw Devil's Rejects, I was like, this feels like the gas station scene from Texas Chainsaw. Another movie that leans on this. Devil's Rejects hugely leans on this. Cabin Fever ends in a way that leans on this. I think The Descent ends in a way that leans on this. You know, um, a lot of movies with this thing where people are trapped out in the middle of nowhere and they're terrorized and they just have to escape and they get out to the main road and they're traumatized for life. Oh, let's see here. Let's see what's up with our friends in the chat. If you had a hook hand and slash people via car and taxi on hike on hikes, but also in cinemas as they watch, is that a slasher? Um, if you had a hook hand and slash people via car and taxi on hikes, but also in cinemas as they watch, is that a slasher? Well, I think so. I think the hook is a slasher, right? Isn't that I Know What You Did Last Summer? The projectionist is in production. The former projectionist gets fired and gets revenge on a digital cinema. Sounds good. I'll see it. I remember not wanting to rent Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 on VHS because why does this corpse family look so happy in the poster art? Yeah, I never got that joke either. That was one that later on, when I was more grown, I got. Um, they for those of you who aren't familiar with some of the marketing for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, they took the family and they posed them like the Breakfast Club. Like they have them all sitting in the same pose, like the same way you see that like Charlie's Angel imagery over and over. Like that's what they did with the Texas Chainsaw family. They had Grandpa and all them sitting there. Mm. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, they sent me the link tomorrow for the remake. Oh, really? Nice. I'm jealous. Who's in the remake? I saw them advertise for that. Um, and is that what? Is that a miniseries? Or is that just a movie? For some reason, I was thinking it was a miniseries. Yeah, I saw the trailer for that. Acres, like I say, it's hopefully to be good. Paula Fitzhenry, welcome, Paula. Paula just subscribed the other day. Welcome, Paula. Nice to see you here. Friend of the community. I've seen you around in other people's chats and stuff. You always seem to be a very sweet and knowledgeable person. So welcome. Nice to have you here. Um, So yeah, here we are at the 24-minute mark. There's an hour left, and we're still in the van. You know that it's this movie. I kind of feel like the first act is too long. I dig all the stuff in the van with the hitchhiker, but once the hitchhiker gets out, it doesn't. It kind of lags. So right now we're in the lag period. They've been to the gas station. Um, the 2022 version had the same gas station scene. It also had John Larroquette's voiceover. Um, But like, I feel like that's not necessarily necessary, something. Yeah, you didn't have to do that, but it helps stretch the film. Like I said, it's only I think one version's an hour 23. This is an hour 26. And here they find this old place falling apart on the side of the road. These abandoned places. Before the internet had all those go visit abandoned whatever videos. I'd always be fascinated by like these old houses on the side of the road or some old factory that shut down. Those urban exploration or like old abandoned whatever exploration videos on YouTube, that's some of the best horror going. Like you can feel the sense of just this person walking alone. Obviously it's something nobody jumped out and killed him because somebody published the video. But as far as just a real live tension, those always work great. So now they've pulled over and they're going to go inside this old decrepit building. uh, let's see. Malika Monroe and Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Martin Starr as Ernie Hudson role. Oh, of course, Martin Starr. Akers kind of just explained the plot for Anguish, 1987, a horror movie that really does its own thing. I've never seen Anguish, I don't think. Thanks from Stacy and welcome. De Niro underrated in the fan. Now you care? Yeah, I think De Niro is good in the fan. I saw the fan in the theater. Uh, it's an interesting like what was it 52 pickup I think it is. Like there's something about these baseball thrillers. It's like, can we mix a murder thriller with baseball? um I also feel like the fan has kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. That's a weird movie, the it's a little bit Taxi Driver almost, but not, it's hard to explain. He says, "Hi, Paula. Yeah, welcome, Paula. It's nice to have you here. I like his quotes and his dialogue in that one. He takes his son and wants to be at the Rolling Stones concert, and his son is like, what the fuck? Nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Paula. Uh, Let me know in the chat or the comments if you've ever seen this before, or if this is one you've seen multiple times. Like I said, as a kid, didn't really watch it that much. Teenager, watched it a handful of times, and then by the time I was an adult, more into like filmmaking, I wanted to go back and see all the important films, and I've always felt this is a super important horror movie. And I'm right. Even now, every time I watch it, I'm like, yeah, I can see the footsteps. This movie crawled so other movies could run. You can see the groundbreaking stuff. Same when I watched Citizen Kane, and it's like it doesn't really stand up to modern audiences, but at the same time you can just see all the things it does that everybody else copies afterwards. Seventh inning rack. That one is being pitched at Berlin Festival for financing. A relief pitcher to just cut foils a terrorist takeover, uses pitching machines and bats, etc. That, yeah, who would you even get for that? Seventh inning wreck. Is that like a Seth Rogen type thing, or I don't know? Do you like Funhouse? Funhouse, I've only seen like once or twice, and it's been a while. That was one, when it first came out on video, I watched it, and then later on, I'm sure Joe Bob had it on in the middle of the night, and I had it on, But um, another one that gets mixed into that late night cable fodder when I would be up and couldn't sleep and just whatever's on. It's like, oh, we've got four movie channels, whichever one's showing something the most intriguing. Usually a lot of flipping, you know. You put on a movie like Funhouse and you watch up to a point where it gets kind of dull for a second, then you flip to see if anything else has come on the other channels. But I'd like to go back and watch Funhouse again, especially in the light of appreciating Hooper more as I got older. Once again, still slow. They're in this old haunted house part thing. You know, the big scary part of the movie so far has been when they picked up the hitchhiker and he cut old buddy's arm. But we're just kind of hanging out with, sweaty teenagers and waiting for bad things to happen. This is another movie that understands wrecked things are scary for some reason. Like they're in this old ripped up house and stuff. That's what they do with haunted houses and everything. When things look decrepit and old, like people haven't been there for a while, they feel more haunted. Ghosts must just like decay. I don't know. It was being packed for someone now for someone else. Let's see here. Anguish 97 is a Spanish produced slasher with Zelda Rubinstein and Michael Lerner. It's like any slasher you'll ever see. I imagine with Zelda Rubinstein. No, I'd like to see that. I don't think I have. That doesn't ring a bell, especially with Zelda. So these two are going to dip off the man and the woman, and they're leaving old buddy in the wheelchair to just sort of mope around. Um, I feel like him in the chair is kind of like Shelley in Friday the 13th Part 3. Old buddy in the new um Halloween ones, the Michael Myers movies, how the first one. There's like that one dorky kid who like is trying to get laid and nobody likes him. This character is just an important staple in horror movie. It's like, oh, the tragic dork. And as a tragic dork, I'm on his side. I fully support him. Let's see here. Would Delaware Glass Catastrophe be a good horror film? TCM was the perfect title. The Delaware, yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the perfect title. That's one of the reasons I never watched it as a kid. Is just the fact that it looked old. The couple times I tried to watch it was enough as to use as an excuse to hide from it. But just the name alone, you know, I feel like growing up, the two real, the real metal horror movies, the main ones people need to see are this and Faces of Death. In the 80s, those were the ones. It's like, oh, Halloween's a little classy, and Freddy's, he's kind of a pop sensation. Kids dress up like Freddy for Halloween and stuff. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Faces of Death, those were the ones that were like, oh man, that's the real stuff right there, bro. And the name alone just gives you such a thought. Like I said, Texas is a country and isolationist. And then you got chainsaw, scary, and then massacre. What more do you need? And like this came out in '74, so I think that's within less than a decade since Kennedy was shot, and the dude in the tower, what's his name? James Earl Ray, whatever. The dude who shot a bunch of people from a tower in Texas. So Texas kind of had like a feeling at this point of like, scurry. It was a word you could attach to things and give the rest of America a feeling of what might be going on in it. So now these two go, like I say, they wandered off from the old abandoned place and are snooping around out back, and that's when they kind of stumble up on the farmhouse over here. This one I have on VHS. I think I have like two different editions on DVD. I don't believe I ever upgraded to this on Blu-ray. And then most of the other, like I have the 2003 one, I have that on disc, and I think I have maybe what's it called, the beginning or whatever the prequel one is called. A lot of this is shot really pretty though, like the daytime stuff with the blues and the greens. It's got good color. It doesn't look dingy. It's well lit. Hey, Wisconsin, shout out. Another rural state. Hey, I see my friend is here. Let's see here. I think it would have my attention. Acres, right? The Delaware glass catastrophe. That sounds good. Capriati's for life. I want to stop by and say hello to the sexiest guy here on YouTube. Oh, John Franklin, you rascal! Unless you're talking to Sean, but either way, thank you. I appreciate you, buddy. This is a movie I know you've probably seen a bunch and are a fan of. Um, This is the classic. So John is for those of you who aren't familiar with John Franklin, film reviewer, movie reviews. I'm sorry. He's one of my first friends here on YouTube. When I tell anybody, when you start off on YouTube, it's very lonely because nobody watches anything, so you're making videos for no one. So if you have a friend to kind of keep you company and keep you going, and John was one of my first friends on here, the first person who was comment on my stuff, pay attention to things. I'd pay attention to his things. We'd bounce ideas off of each other. So it was just nice to have a buddy here. And John was one of my first ones. I'm very grateful for him. So nice to have you here, John. Thanks, buddy. What would be your dream job in the Dharma Initiative? Look at you dusting off Lost. Oh boy, I don't know. The Dharma Initiative is widespread. I'd probably want to be someone working in the science field, the folks that are setting up how to mess with people's minds. Here's what we're going to do today. We have polar bears. Okay, I'm interested. Now, this I always feel like when you just open somebody's screen door and start yelling in their house, you kind of deserve to get chainsaw murdered. Like you're asking for it. I'm normally anti chainsaw murdering anyone. I feel like that's a last resort. But if some stranger just poked their head in right now while I was trying to talk, and chainsaw murder might be appropriate. Yeah, here's all the Ed Gein imagery I was talking about earlier, where he's just got all these skulls of animals and pelts everywhere. And you can see there's been a lot of you know, people cutting apart stuff and taking apart animals and digging with their bones and whatnot. There's a sound of a pig squealing. It said in the captions. The sound effects for this, a lot of the score was actually animal sounds. Rather. So there he is, the first scene. He comes walking in, he slips, and then he busts out and hits him right over the head with the hammer. I'm glad we didn't go straight to the chainsaw. And this first kill here, well, start of a kill, when he hits the dude in the hammer and the guy has the seizure and his legs shake and stuff, you don't get that in other horror movies. That's like something that might really happen, something that's just a little too real for Hollywood movie making. So there's the famous butt shot. She's in the chair swing and she gets up and starts walking to the house. They shoot her from the knee up from behind. And we've seen this all sorts of times. Like I said in the Jessica Biel remake, they had her do that. Cabin Fever has another movie that has the same type of shot. It's just I don't know. Young filmmakers who love horror are gonna want to copy a shot, and if you're gonna copy something, it's probably easier to convince the woman, like, "Hey, we want to get a shot of your butt," like Texas Chainsaw. Oh, okay, sure, why not? He says, "Thank you for that, my good friend." Well, no, thank you. Like I say, I'm currently ready to approach 1,000 subscribers. I'm what 13, 14 away, something like that. So if you'd like to like and subscribe, that would help a lot. I appreciate it very much. But on that journey, that I wouldn't be anywhere near 1,000 on that road to it if I hadn't stuck around early. And people like John are the ones that helped me feel comfortable here. Same with uh, Same with most of the folks who are in the chat. Sean is one of my early friends here. I soaked up kind of the movie watch along game from him and Video Tasties and a bunch of other people who I really love. So now she stumbles into this room and falls down. There's just like old feathers and bones, and you can just tell like it looks like that rocking chair is made out of some old bones and sticks and stuff. And I don't know why this chicken is so scary though. I've never. She looks up and there's like a chicken in a cage, and she's like, it's like, dude, you're surrounded by bones and hair and teeth and stuff. Why are you scared of a chicken? What the cluck? And they're looking around the room. She finds a chair, and there it is, a human skeleton sitting there, or an effigy of a human skeleton. You can see the arms and the legs and the weird designs, all like I say, that Ed Gein stuff. If anybody's watched that Ed Gein miniseries with Sons of Anarchy guy, let me know. I'm curious. I'll probably get to that at some point, but I still haven't even gotten to Dahmer or Menendez. So Gein's low on my list. But I've watched a couple of the other Gein horror movies. There's a terrible one with I think Sid Haig and um, Oh God, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. The guy who plays Jason. What is my man's name? I'm drawing a blank on it. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Uh, um, but there's like several Ed Gein ones out there. You can learn a lot about the character of Ed Gein. Yeah, the chicken is arguably one of the more scarier things in this. The disarray is also like a lot of horror movies use these shots of her, like the bones, the knives, the teeth, just these insert shots of things that make you feel uncomfortable and set a tone. Um, a lot of them use that in their credit scenes. All you need is a few shots of some teeth, and it sends a pretty big message. And now she runs out the door, and Leatherface picks her up and carries her back in. I mentioned earlier the three great scenes, no bad ones rule, and this one has a few bad ones, but that's one of the great scenes. Him busting out of that door, chasing her down. Just a second ago, we saw her walk up to the house. That's arguably one of the great scenes of this movie because it gets stolen so much. And she's going to get put on a hook. Now, get this. This I can't believe. Apparently, Tobe Hooper, when he was making this, maybe Stacy knows, he tried to cut some of the gore and some of the actual blood that we see and some of the grossness out of this in the hopes of getting a PG rating. Like when he got an R, he was disappointed. Like I can't believe Poltergeist and Jaws are PG. There's no way in hell this is a PG movie. Imagine a bunch of unsupervised children in a theater watching this. And there he's the first time he's chainsawing somebody up. We get a good look at the mask. Um, Before this was called Texas Chain Saw Massacre, that great title, it was originally going to be called Head Cheese, and then later on Leatherface, or maybe it was Leatherface and then Head Cheese, but wasn't until post that they kind of figured out to go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's see here. Red pasta is a communist Russia term for horror and giallo and western that were produced for mainly Moscow area cinemas from 77 to 87. Man, they're pretty crazy when they're unarchived. I didn't realize that Russia had any kind of like horror, um, community or whatever. I don't see a lot of Russian stuff turn up. But then again, I'm super ignorant to non, American films, international films, whatever you want to call it. Um, I'm guilty of being an American. There's so much to watch in American filmmaking that I'm always behind. That I rarely get to international filmmaking. But as I often say, though, if something's great, I'll find it. It'll end up in my lap somehow. Plenty of stuff from all over the world that no reason for me to ever see. Let the right one in, or um, uh, you know, um, what's the other one? Rare exports. Um, The Host. Train to Busan. Some of these movies, whether I know anything about them or not, word of mouth will get to me. Have you seen the Raid movies? No, but I will. Commentaries. I'm assuming you're talking to John. I've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre many times, and I do enjoy it. My biggest problem with the movie is it's not that rewatchable like some of the sequels. Um, See, this one I enjoy because I think of the film history. Like I'm right now going through and watching it. There's just so much that jumps out at me. It's like, oh, this movie does that, or oh, I've seen this scene before. Copied so many times. Um, as Sean mentioned, this is one of the first ones. Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street both kind of stumble onto this idea that we're going to be rooting for the killer, which is dumb. Like we're supposed to be afraid of the killer and be rooting for like in Halloween, we root for Laurie Strode. It isn't until way later that Michael Myers becomes the star. So this, it's like, no, we're supposed to be rooting for the main girl to get away. But in general, a lot of folks just don't like these people. And if they're going to get chainsawed up, what are you going to do? So it sort of sets the tone of like, unlikable teenagers that you actually don't mind seeing suffer. At least they're characters. Let's not be too mean and psychopathic. Let's see here. There are so many unreleased or unlabeled and unarchived movies that were made for a worldwide distribution or be known beyond their markets. Yeah, that's what I tell people often now. I say there's infinity movies. And they're like, well, there's not really because there's a finite. No, they're infinity. Because just now while we were talking, somebody wrapped one. Like, especially with cheaper equipment now and the worldwide film community and people having phones on their damn cameras, there's more movies than any one person could ever see in their lifetime. So, um, it's part of the reason I do this channel is to try to help steer folks in the direction of good stuff to see or, open up a channel for people to tell me good stuff to see. I always appreciate the comments and the things people leave on posts and whatnot to just let me know, see this, see that. I often tell people I'll add it to the list because I will once, the one you mentioned earlier, the Sean had looked up, where was it? Anguish, 1987, for sure. I'll check that out. Make Cocoon Legacy cool. Cast people as young as Don Amici, etc. Um, yeah, Cocoon's a sore subject with me because I think I learned a couple years ago. Wilford Brimley is like 5 years younger than I am now when he made Cocoon. Right? That'll keep you awake at night. Like that, I almost scheduled a doctor's appointment just simply on that. Like, yeah, what do you need? I need a checkup. I'm apparently older than Wilford Brimley in Cocoon, but that's Wilford Brimley though. Yeah, he figured out he was old looking at a young age, and then he was professionally old for like 40 years. It's like, how's this man been 65 for the last 50 years? And this is, yeah, once again more classic stuff that's going to show up in horror movies later on, where the old nerdy dude shows up and he's like, Kirk, hey guys, quit playing games, quit goofing on me, are you there? Like, that's every slasher movie in the 80s. Guys, hello, is someone there? Why don't you just put a sign on that says murder me? Gutenberg looking for sure his health now. I bet. Nice. Oh, thank you, Paula. Um, cast Robert Duvall as young Wilford Brimley. Does Duvall even work anymore? I thought he was on that Hackman route where he just was like, modern movies suck, so I don't do them. In a movie where people get murdered with a chainsaw and hung up on a hook and hit over the head with a hammer so they have seizures, how could that be PG? What was Tobe Hooper thinking? What he was thinking is he'd like more money. You know, the difference between PG and R has got to be a huge amount of money. But so there he gets clunked on the head. She's in the freezer. Some people say that's how she dies because she was, wiggling and awake there. So they often blame her death on death by freezer. I just feel like Leatherface kills them all. But so far, we've had a clunk on the head, a hanging on the hook, a death by freezer, another guy been clunked on the head. So there's Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface. Apparently, they didn't have any like budget for costumes or anything, so to keep continuity, they wouldn't let him wash his shirt. And after shooting this entire movie towards the end, that shirt smelled so terrible, no one would go near Gunnar Hansen. Like you could almost smell it just telling that story, looking at him like, oh yeah, it looks bad. And we get just because of the set design. There he does the creepy teeth licking. Ugh, I hate that shot. Um, just because of the set design with all just like a pointless bone hanging from the ceiling from a rope. Like, why? I don't know. That's how we decorated this room. So just that alone is enough to just make you unsettled at all times. Like if there was ever a moment where you just felt like relaxed during this movie, which never happens, in the background there's just a swinging bone. Swinging Bones, good name for a strip club. Spontaneous combustion is about how we are never told the truth from the beginning by parents or authorities. So I don't think I've ever seen spontaneous combustion. I've heard of it. Let me see if it's playing anywhere. It's on Tubi for free. 1990, huh? Directed by Toby. The sons of parents who were tested with an anti-radiation vaccine develops the ability to incinerate others. Yeah, so it's kind of a fire starter scanners kind of thing. I'm interested. I'm interested. Leatherface will be safe and not attacked, but he is pungent. Would you rather hang out with him or the Dumb and Dumber chaps in their van for the day? Probably the Dumb and Dumber chaps, right? As long as they don't pass me a beer to drink, because beep, 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 or whatever the pee drinking noise that dude made was. Um, yeah, I'd rather hang out with the Dumb and Dumber guys in the shaggin' wagon than Gunner in this van. There's a shot of his chainsaw a second ago, and I was thinking about it. There's a in the uh, uh, description. Jesus, I forgot the word of the thing. In the description of this video, I put the link to if you'd like to purchase a copy of the collector's maximum edition of this. It comes with like the 4K Blu-ray, DVD, VHS, blah blah blah. But it all comes in a giant chainsaw. Like, if nothing else, even if you're not interested in buying it, it's worth clicking on to check out. Like, I can't believe who would put this on their shelf? Like the big lime green chainsaw, yellow lime green thing. Damn it, Franklin! Jerry took the keys with him. Yeah, having the one dude in the chair really ratchets up the stakes because you know that there's always going to be one person who can't run or one person you're going to have to look out for. Smart filmmaking. Make the people vulnerable even though they're kind of unlikable jerks. Would Kelsey Grammer have been a good Dr. Giggles? Probably. I don't know. Larry Drake's pretty awesome in that. Like Larry Jake, I remember him from Dark Knight of the Scarecrow or whatever it's called, and then L.A. Law. But when he got that Dr. Giggles role, I was like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I like it. I always thought Larry Drake would have been a great penguin. Let's see. Tony Danger, the drive-in will never die. Welcome, Tony. Yeah, Tony's. I think I met what you through Patrick, perhaps. Oh no, maybe Papa Goss. Maybe could be. Papa Goss is the man. Welcome, Tony. Nice to have you here. Yeah, the drive-in will never die. I agree with you. Uh, I used to love Joe Bob back in the day, and he'd be watching, tonight we're going to be watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We got 3 people on a hook. We got 4 chainsaw murders. We got 2 people hit with a hammer. 1 partially exposed buttocks. 3.5 stars. I've been watching Joe Bob as background noise when I do stuff. He's on that, I have AMC Plus, and they often show the stuff from Shutter through there. So, um, I've been watching The Last Drive-In a lot while I've been editing videos and things. Uh, Once again, be sure to like and subscribe. A whole new series of Halloween videos have been coming out. Been finishing up the Mars Attack series in the shorts. I've been doing all sorts of horror movie posters, horror movie reviews. Been dabbling with this new thing with good and bad iconic horror tattoos. The best Freddy, the best Jason, the worst Freddys, the worst Jasons. Maybe after I watch this, there'll be a worst Leatherface. Never can tell. The world's a crazy place. Papa for sure, he rules. Yeah, Papa's the man. I met that guy, I believe, through Horror Cat Dad, and then noticed he was bouncing around a bunch of other chats, and he's a cool, cool guy. I dig that man. One thing for sure, occurring soon: DeVito as Spacely deal in works. You are really going to get this Jetson thing going, huh? Right. I would like to see. I would like to see that DeVito as Spacely Sprockets. And there it is. Franklin catches it. They're pushing, she's trying to push him through the woods, in a chair at night. So obviously it's difficult. And then Leatherface just pops up out of nowhere and chainsaws him open. I always thought it's charming that Leatherface has the tie on, right? Like it makes him almost feel like a butcher working at a butcher shop. That he's got the big apron on. He's got sort of a short sleeve work shirt, looking like he's working in a cubicle somewhere. I want to collect the Mars Attacks baseball cards. Yeah, that series I did of the original. I've been working on now. Um, there's a one whole complete video on my channel of the whole set where I narrate them and do audio effects like an old radio plate type thing. But I've broken them up into shorts, and they've been playing one card at a time. Uh, I got a bunch of cards in my shorts. Um, So yeah, that's going to wrap up on Halloween night, tribute to War of the Worlds kind of thing. Um, but yeah, those old sets, the artwork on them is amazing. There's another set they did too, like Mars Attacks the Revenge or something. I wish they would make those cards into a movie. You know, the Tim Burton one's fun and I like it and it's an awesome dark comedy, but I would like to see some of the stuff now that CGI is available. It's like do the big stuff, you know, the flying ants and the giant bugs and the going to Mars and fighting robots and stuff. All that stuff's in there. It's cool. Rad. Who should play Rip Van Winkle? Christian Bale or someone else? Probably Christian Bale. I would never vote against Bale. I enjoy his work a lot. Mrs. Night Owl and I watched the Batman movies recently, and I was explaining to her about his transformation for what was it, The Machinist? I think it was. Um, so there's the run through the woods, or he's chasing her back to the house with the chainsaw. And the lighting on this is surprisingly good. It's really hard to get quality footage, especially back then with the cameras they had, and this camera is not the greatest. So to get, quality lit footage, and they didn't do day for night or any cheat like that. It's the problem with day for night is it works, but the problem is it just feels wrong whenever you see it. Why is everything so dark blue? Readapt thinner? I'd be down for a readapt thinner. Thinner's one of my favorite. It's basically a werewolf story. It's the old Lon Chaney Wolfman story, except he gets turned thin instead of into a wolf. Um, but I remember that book. That was one of Stephen King books I read. Early on, I went through a phase where I was reading a lot of horror, and those Stephen King paperbacks were my thing. So that thinner movie, even though it's low budget, and at the time it got killed by the critics, everybody wasn't a fan of that thinner movie. I would like to see it remade. It needs a bigger star. The star they have of it, that like knockoff John Saxon looking guy, he's a decent actor, but they could have got somebody bigger. But who are you going to get to wear that prosthetic stuff? How about Colin Farrell, since he just got done doing the Penguin so good with that prosthetic stuff? Once again, more stuff that gets ripped off in horror movies for the rest of time. She's running from him. She goes up the stairs and jumps out the window. How many horror heroines or final girls have you seen just jump out a window? That's like a default move. In real life, it would never occur to me to jump out a window. I'm on ground floor, and if somebody came right now, I wouldn't jump out a window. Just straight airplane style. I'm unclear for the financing for Acid Mountain. That one is being filmed this year. A woman raised in death camps runs her own death camp off the map. A wild, wild movie. I would watch that. That sounds like something that'll be right up my alley. But called it fatter and make the guy blimp out. Blam. Yeah, instead of thinner, call it fatter with PHAT. I like it. Welcome, Mr. Bones. Did you sneak in here? Or is that the first comment you've made? My friend, Mr. Bones, longtime collaborator. Once again, I mentioned what a cool guy John Franklin is. That's how I feel about Mr. Bones. Is one of the people that on this route to 1,000, I'm very nostalgic and appreciative of the folks that have had my back and supported me for so long. Mr. Bones has been a buddy for years now. Mr. Bones, you watch what? Ginger Snaps tonight? Uh, yeah, that's good, right? I would watch Fatter. The window of the wall, the face blood on the wall, till the sweat drips from my balls. So he's chasing her through the woods now. We're at 25 minutes left. We're 26, 25. So that we're at the 57 minute and 40-second mark. And this is him chasing her through the woods while she screams. Once again, how many movies before this that we never saw this in? And then after this, how many movies do we see? That's why this is, Mount Rushmore horror. And he gets so close a couple of times, like you feel like he's going to get her. And now she runs back to said gas station I mentioned earlier that wasn't important because they have like 4 sets in this movie. Basically it's Chekhov's gas station. When you establish a mini mart in the first act, You have to use it in the third act. Yes, Ginger Snatch. Oh, is that a different one? Loyalty Rules for shizzle. Couldn't go anywhere without it. Over here of both Bath, Michigan Massacre. That would be a good movie. The principal went crazy and killed everyone in the town and burned it down. You know that story or town? Bath, Michigan. No, I know Bath, Ohio. I'm not familiar with Bath, Michigan. Put more light on me there. So of course, when she gets inside the gas station, the dude that helps her behind the counter, or the guy that rescues her, the attendant, he's in on it, of course. And that, how many times have we seen that in horror movies after this? Like the person gets away and they're going to be okay. They find someone who's going to help, but it turns out they're in on it too. A bunch of these are tropes that were invented in the black and white era, but they're used so good here. Halloween gets the credit for being the first slasher, but I kind of feel like this gets overlooked. This and Black Christmas obviously were the two that came out before Halloween. But as far as like Halloween's notoriety for how much money it made compared to budget, this did almost the same exact thing. Halloween gets all this credit for, inventing the genre. Really, what Halloween does is it does this, but classy. Like, this is so gross, as I've mentioned. It looks like something out of a science film class, or a science class movie. It's the chicken in the cage, right? That looks like something you would see in a science class. So, as where Halloween takes itself like it's a important cinema, like it's shot in the big like 1.85 aspect ratio, like all widescreen and stuff. Like it takes itself like serious art. As where this is like, no, this is gross and dirty and everything's covered in yuck. Like I mentioned, this is one of the few movies you feel like you can smell. There's this awesome podcast called Star Wars Minute where they talk about each minute of every Star Wars movie. And that's just a half hour on 1 minute. So on this one, like one of the things they mentioned on the Star Wars Minute is, what do you think this room smells like? And I feel like through this entire movie, I don't need to ask that question. Like this gas station, I can smell it. It smells like motor oil and beef jerky, sweat, cow manure, all the biggies. Shout out, this show's sponsored by Slim Jim. No, but this show is sponsored by Not All Movie Talk Gear. Feel free to get yourself some. There's a link in the description to buy whatever you need, t-shirts, hats, what have you. Got a few new designs rolling out. Be sure to check the site every now and then and see if something new is there for you. Got baseball caps coming soon per the request of Sean Blue Digital, my friend Cinephile World Order there. Let's see here. He wanted to win mayor and didn't, so they dynamited and killed 100. Oh, that's the Bath, Michigan massacre. Crazy. I guess you could argue Last House on the Left. Yeah, that's another one too. Last House on the Left and what was it? Mayor Zarki's Spit on Your Grave. Those movies have a look. Yeah, I feel like Last House on the Left, Spit on Your Grave, they feel like they're spiritual cousins. They all look away, like they have a vibe to them. Yeah, they're just dirty, gross movies. Um, Motel Hell has that a little bit. That's part of the charm of this era of horror, is it feels so visceral, I guess. It's grungy as opposed to the stuff that started coming out in the 90s, Scream and all the things that came out to knock off Scream. I Know What You Did Last Summer and all of those. They look very clean and professional. They look like a quality major motion picture product. This looks like maybe a snuff film. Yeah, Last House on the Left is another one I guess you could throw in there that's really from that time period. Um, But that one's a bizarre one because it's not so much a slasher as it is a revenge film. But going into it, you feel like it's going to be, I don't know, ghosts and stuff. You just know Last House on the Left. You don't know anything more about it. Um, but Last House on the Left is seminal because then, the ending of that is basically the ending of Nightmare on Elm Street 1. You actually like Last House on the Left more than this? Last House on the Left, and same with I Spit on Your Grave, because of the subject matter and just the abuse of women and stuff. They're hard for me to watch. And horror is supposed to be hard for you to watch. Right now with like Black Phone and Five Nights at Freddy's, there's a lot of like kidnapper horror, and that's also one that's like super emotional to me. Like it makes me extra uncomfortable and tripped out. Um, as where this, it's like, well, it's not hard to believe that there's weirdos out in the middle of nowhere, and if you broke down or had to end up at their house, it would be bad for you. But Last House is a classic. Um, I like my movies with yuck. Yeah, Bones. That's part of the reason me and you always enjoy a lot of the same stuff. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Yeah. Night of the Living Dead was before this. Once again, not quite the slasher type thing. This is a special, almost genre of this. Um, but Night of the Living Dead's another one we're going to be watching here. Within the next few days, I'm sure. Uh, Important movies that other things stand on the shoulders of. I've been watching the entire series run of Walking Dead for Halloween, and in there, I just keep thinking like they should have just wrote George Romero a huge check. Like so much of The Walking Dead and so much of all zombie anything is just built on the back of George Romero. And I feel like a bunch of the slasher movies, especially the stuff in the 80s, really kind of built on the back of this. Last House, Night of the Living Dead. I like my movies with yuck. I still recommend Brute 1976, and it's like a mix of Texas Chain Saw Massacre 31 and X. Really? Brute 1976. Interesting. Never heard of it, I don't think. Do you like Death Spa? Isn't that a newer one? I don't know. I don't know about current Texas Chainsaw Massacre, etc. I don't care much for great films. Um, well, yeah, that's what I mean. They're a little bit different. The sexual stuff, whatever, the women stuff, and like I said, and with other movies with the kid stuff. Although I'm fine with like Damien. If the kid's the killer, I'm fine because kids are scary. But if something bad happens to kids or anything, it just right away makes me I'm more disturbed at the concept than I am ability to enjoy the film. That was an awesome shot. Just the two white lights, and they push them up close to the camera, so it looks like the headlights of the car just drove right up into the screen. So now they've captured her and they've got her back to the house. Night's wrapping up. Um, I feel like Rob Zombie's House of Thousand Corpses tries to steal a lot from this. I mentioned a bunch of movies that take from this. Devil's Rejects obviously does, but that whole thing where they're trapped in the country house and she escapes and she's running through the fields and blah blah blah. All that is just Texas Chainsaw. You know, sure. Leatherface. Um, who'd be a better slasher? Goldie Hawn, Whoopi Goldberg, Susan Sarandon, Steve Buscemi. Pick two. Oh boy, I would run my ass off from Whoopi Goldberg and Susan Sarandon. I'll go Susan Sarandon and Steve Buscemi. Actually, uh, Susan Sarandon has a dark side to her. Like she can play anything. I like her when she plays smiley and nice and sweet. And Dead Man Walking or whatever. But I like her too when she's sexy and fun, like Bull Durham. Um, so I could see her being like a total Juliette Lewis, serial killer type. And then this stuff where they've got her tied up, and there's just all this like crazy abuse in the house. You can see this dysfunction and him teasing her and laughing. This feels almost like shit I've been through. Like late at night when people are drunk and stupid and young, you see some crazy stuff go on, and that's what this almost feels like. The antics of people who aren't right in the head late at night. Speaking of that, it is currently 2:49 in the morning on the East Coast. Thank you for joining me here or on the podcast or the replay later. You can find me on all your major favorite podcast providers or subscribe to the channel here on YouTube where I'm only like 13 away from 1,000. Yes, awesome shot. Very creative filmmaker. Run, Rabbit, run. Jason Black hockey mask. I don't know about a black hockey mask. I've seen those marketed. It's Halloween time right now, so there's all sorts of stuff everywhere you see. Like I'll see pink hockey masks and stuff. That's one of the things with Jason and him, that mask. He worked so hard. The first two movies, the first one he's not in, the second one he's got the bag head. So when he gets the hockey mask in the third one, they can't really trademark that hockey mask, which is sad because real hockey then went to like the goalies having helmets and like totally different masks than that. So it's almost like it's a shame they didn't get their own thing that they could trademark and really hold a good copyright on. But there are same with Ghostface, I guess that mask is everywhere too. But if you want to do a Michael Myers mask, you got to pay somebody, William Shatner or something. So now this whole handheld stuff where they're going in close on her and you can just sort of feel how claustrophobic everything is. And, because they're doing it handheld and twisting the camera, it's all natural Dutch angles to have a like unsettling feeling of unease, you know, as if this movie needed help being, not anything to be chill during. There is, we are at the 109:30 mark. There's 14 minutes left in the movie. We're coming down to the end. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm just here to see Leatherface do the chainsaw dance at the end. One of the other, like I said, this movie has a bunch of incredible, memorable scenes in it, and her getting away in that pickup truck and everything, and then Leatherface just standing in the road, doing the chainsaw dance of death. Even like the way she's gagged up, like they've got her bound to a chair and she's all tied up with twiny rope. And when they push in close, you can see like the little rope slivers coming off it. And like the rag they have in her mouth looks just unsanitary. When they made this, apparently, like a lot of real brutality went on. Like I said, they didn't wash anybody's clothes, they didn't clean any sets, everything kind of stunk. Um, some of the blood that happens are from accidents on the set where the people bled, and instead of treating them medically, they just let the real blood get all over things. A couple of times, I think there's one part where they hit her with the rod coming up. So now here's where they bring Grandpa in, and as I recall, this scene is real too, where they cut her hand. They actually did cut her. And I remember watching this the first time, I ever saw it when I was young. The grandpa immediately was just like, "All right, this has gone too far. Even I'm just weirded out by all that's going on." Sorry for the dead air there for a minute. When you got a man in this old man lake, sorry, you have a man in this old man latex outfit. He looks like the damn dude from Great America, the the weird old man that dances. Um, like you've got this guy on here sucking the blood out of her finger until she passes out. You know, you've worked in cannibalism, you've worked in vampire stuff. We've got a full moon. We've had a guy beaten about the head till he had a seizure. We had a person hung on a hook, somebody in a freezer. This one does a good job of not just limiting us to the terror being with the chainsaw. The subsequent movies are pretty much all chainsaw. Oh, so now here she comes to after passing out. The grandpa makeup, I don't know if it stands up in this restoration. Here's the famous dinner scene. They've got her tied to a chair that's got real human arms on it, and she's screaming, and they're all just laughing at her. That's part of the awfulness of this is that the villains mock the victims. Michael Myers is just quiet, Jason's quiet. Freddy's fun, but he's almost fun in like a trash talking silly kind of way, not like a childish mocking your tears and pain. There's something about how like just ignorant and dangerous these people are that makes them extra scary. Uh, I've been getting this image of various bank robbers using Jason and Michael Myers masks. Would that be good? Um, yeah, well, that bank robber thing, ever since what Heat, I think is that probably the main one, and there's been a couple others since then. There was a old DC Comics like rip off of the Punisher, and his name was like Mad Dog or something. He used to wear a hockey mask. It's a very, I don't know, it just sets a tone. What about Strange Brew? Strange Brew's got some great hockey masks. Did you enjoy the John Larroquette show? There's some great episodes. He's thirsty. He is thirsty, right? Drink blood out of a finger. No, I remember the John Larroquette show. I barely remember it. Uh, like I said, I was a fan of Night Court growing up when I was a kid, and then later on, he ran a bus station or something like that on the John Larroquette show, and they talked about there was a subplot about him being a recovering alcoholic, and I think real John Larroquette was probably a recovering substance abuser, especially the Colombian stuff. And here's all the Ed Gein stuff we mentioned earlier too, where there's like a skeleton that they've put a lamp in, and then there's a lamp that hangs over the dinner table that's got like a woman's face pulled over the top of it. Just so darkly, like absurdly horror. Like how much awfulness can we just pour into this? Apparently, a lot. Not many other interesting information. There's the box office info, spontaneous combustion. Um, Yeah, according to this, I wanted to track down the timelines of the Texas Chainsaw movies to make sure I had seen them the right way or whatever, and they pretty much just go as they came out, like they chronological release. 74, and then is this one, and then part two comes out in 86. Leatherface Chainsaw Massacre 3 in 90, and Next Generation in 95. And then the 2003 one is a totally separate timeline, no way connected to these group of films. And that one had a prequel, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. And then in 2013, there was the Texas Chainsaw 3D. And then the 2017 prequel to that, Leatherface. And then there was the 2022 Netflix one, I think. Um, yeah, a direct sequel to the 74 film, ignoring most all other films. So this one, the one from Netflix in 2022, is the sequel directly to this, which is just absurd because there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't line up. But this one, kind of hard to argue it's not a masterpiece. Uh, yeah, this old man too. He looks like I've known people like that. The old Southern man with the hair dye and the sideburns and the dress pants. Always the black shoes. Never sneakers on those cats. My grandfather was one of those guys. My mother's father. He always had that button down shirt, dress pants, black belt. Always the black belt. Brad Pitt Jaws, quaint relative tries to stop new shark, shuts up purist, $400 million worldwide opening weekend. I would see Brad Pitt in Jaws. We've mentioned before, Jaws is one of the ones I'm waiting to see remade because they remake everything. So the idea that they haven't tried to capitalize on Jaws's earning power and remake it. The problem is Jaws is another thing you can't copyright. So there's a bunch of other Jaws movies out there now, like Jaws versus Exorcist and Amityville Jaws horror and killer Jawses from outer space and whatnot. Oops, sorry. I kick the uh, kick the camera with my foot. Only the best technical expertise here at Night Owl Movie Talk. I thank you for joining me. It is currently 2 minutes away from 3 a.m. Eastern Time. Got Halloween coming up here in 9 days. What are your plans for Halloween? What are you going as for this year? You got a cool costume? Anybody want to share with us? Talk to me. What do you anything movie related? Are you the type of person that gives out better candy if people have good costumes and less candy if they have worse costumes? Are you the type of person that shuts off the light and doesn't give out any candy? I used to love giving out Halloween candy to trick or treaters and stuff because it's cool to see just a bunch of strangers show up at your door. It's like, oh, someone knocked on the door dressed as Spider Man. It's like a dream come true. Um, but now that I have kids, usually trick or treating night, I'm out taking them rather than handing out candy. Got to do the thing where you make the little special bags of candy for the other little kids that they know, the friends of the family kids, and then sorry other people. Uh, People shat on the Netflix one, but I dug it. Yeah, I was mentioning that earlier. I enjoyed it. I thought the whole there was a thing where one of the characters was lived through a school shooting, so she had like background trauma already. Sorry, this is the classic scene where they've got her bent over the wash bucket and they're trying to get grandpa to do one last murder, grandpa trying to be part of the fam, and he's so weakly hammering at her head. He doesn't have the strength to kill her with one blow like he's Thor or some crap. Instead, he's just like banging away at her head all softly, put little dents in it. And just the terror of this is their insensitive, like their insensitivity, like the way they cry and all that. So there she just gets up, runs away, jumps out the window. And when she lands, she's on all fours with her face covered in blood, looking around what direction to run in. There's another one of those classic scenes I talk about that people rip off. That's in not only the jumping through the window, which horror movies rip off everywhere, but that like panicked, screaming woman covered in blood, the final girl itis. Look what your brother did to the door, right? I think it'll because if they're not being allowed to do Back to the Future, they're going to want to remake Jaws then for the Universal. I want new Jaws Trilogy 1 in 1776 where Ben Franklin stops. I would be interested in that. Could have a way prequel. Shark with electricity. Yeah, if Ben Franklin killed a shark with electricity, I'm in on that movie. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock because he didn't like Spiral. Spiral's another one I haven't seen yet. I have a list of like 10 horror movies that I would like to see, and I never get around to them. Life Force has been on it. Spiral's on it. I'm forever trying to track down Spiral. I saw it's on Tubi this month, and I'm excited. So there, he's slashing at her back with that. Oh Jesus, he's slashing at her back with that straight razor, and the semi comes and rolls him over, just plows him down, mows him down. And they use like a really good quick shot of a dummy, so we see the body just get run over. And then this big dude gets out of the truck. I always like him. It's like I don't know whose friend that was or what, but he's great casting. The sort of like chubby semi truck driver. So they're for some reason the Leatherface starts chainsawing at the door and scratching up the paint, and they decide we got to get out of here. It's like, yeah, just step on the gas. No, no, let's get out the passenger door and run away. It's like, you fool. And somehow this woman's been through a night of terror where she's been, tortured and beaten about the head, and she can outrun this truck driver. Kids, lay off the hot dogs. And that's where the truck driver knocks Leatherface out for a quick second, and the chainsaw falls on his thigh, and we get that the classic scene. So many awesome little just glimpses of moments. If you watch a lot of horror, retrospective, documentary type stuff, these scenes have all been overdone a million times. And there's that famous blue pickup truck. Get me the hell out of here. That guy's a hero. There's a lot of heroes in horror movies. This guy that picks her up at the end and then is smart enough to actually drive away. There's another classic scene. Her covered in blood, banging on the window of the pickup truck as she like sort of laughs in this "I beat you" kind of way. And there it is, the Leatherface dance of death. Not enough people in the club doing the chainsaw Leatherface dance. Right? And then it's perfect. It's like golden hour. And he's just, I don't know, whatever this. It reminds me of when that dude in Big Lebowski does like his performance art. That's what Leatherface's chainsaw dance is. And there you go. Bam. Perfect ending to a horror movie right there. Because not only does the woman get away, and then we see Leatherface do his little dance, cut straight to black and credits, right? Like, there's none of this messing around. We've talked about this before. Don't show me like her go back home and be in the hospital and have like a doctor, a detective come talk to her. What happened out there? That's for the sequel. Once you defeat the villain or the monster, get the hell out of there. The movie's over. If King Kong's dead, we need credits. So she defeats the monster, she gets away, she lives, all her friends die, the end. And that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a classic, a horror classic, indubitably. Uh, Big fan of it. I don't know if it's for everybody, but it's certainly for me. Um, I think I would recommend. Probably Texas Chainsaw 2 if you know that it's going to be like a comedy. And I would recommend the 2003 one, and then the Netflix 2022 one is Divisive. So if if that's what you're into, or if you want to try it and let me know, feel free to tell me somewhere on my channel in the comments somewhere what you thought of that one. Otherwise, I am going to wrap this up. Sean says it really is one of the most what the fuck endings in cinematic history. Yeah, I mean, it just adds to the craziness of the Leatherface family. That's them people are nuts and they do nut people things. Speaking of nuts doing nut people things, I am a crazy person for hanging out all night and talking about movies, and you are awesome people for hanging out and keeping me company while I do it. Thank you very much for being here. Have a few more live watch parties planned before Halloween. We're about 10 days out now, 9 now. So a few more that we want to watch together and talk about some of the real stuff, the metal stuff, man, the real Halloween. Otherwise, all sorts of content, 3 to 4 videos a day going up on the channel. Feel free to like and subscribe. Other than that, I thank you for joining me and being here and keeping me company. I thanks all the folks in the chat. Stacy, Sean, Bones was here. Um, I want a mob monster movie, Godzilla versus the Mafia. Man, Stacy, you always have the best ideas. Always. Um, Let's see here. Tony Danger, thank you for joining me. It's cool to have you here. I haven't really had a chance to talk with you or meet you. Like I said, through Papa Goss, it's cool to talk to you. My friend Paula, a brand new friend, was here. I thank you. Big Tony was here. Um, and I thank you, listener to this or the replay or the podcast. And I'm very grateful for you. I wish you a happy Halloween. If I don't talk to you before then, I probably will, right? But otherwise, I wish you green grass and high tides forever. Adios, amigos, my friends.